Vanakkam. Hello friends. As we continue with the rule of the early Pandiyas, we saw in the previous episode about two rulers, Ilavandigai Palli Tunjiya Nanmaran, the good Maran who died at Ilavandigai, and Kudaharathu Tunjiya Maran Validi, the Validi who passed away at Kudaharam. They ruled between 125 and 150 Common Era. Coming after Nedunjezhiyan III of Thalayalanganam fame, K. N. Sivarajapillai shows in his The Chronology of the Early Tamils that there is ambiguity as to how they were related to this king. In the next generation, again KNS shows us two rulers, Musirimutriya Sediyan and Ukkara Peruvalidi. Their rule is given between 150 and 175 Common Era. Recreating the lineages of these early rulers has been a big challenge because of scant information, and historians have had to rely largely on the Sangam corpus. Though today there are many archaeological sites giving valuable information about the ancient Tamil civilization, such as the excavation at Keeladi that has taken back the timeline to 6th century BCE, there is no evidence to throw light on the rulers of that bygone era. And KNS by far has done the most thorough job of sieving through information given in the Sangam works and forming a genealogy of rulers. And he points out how the Sangam works themselves have been compiled in a very haphazard manner, throwing chronology to the wind. Several poems in the Sangam corpus mention the name of different Pandya rulers who do not find a place in the genealogy table of KNS. They must have been family heirs or chieftains ruling from smaller provinces subjugated to the sovereign king of that time. Avaiduraisamy Pillai, the Tamil scholar, points out how the Moovendar had the custom of bestowing on chieftains who acted as their ministers and commanders with honorific titles that sometimes carried the family name. For instance, a poet by the name Perayil Muruvalar has rendered a Puram poem on a Nambi Nedunjezhiyan. Nambi is shown as a chieftain of great repute in this poem, and so it must be that a Pandyan Nedunjezhiyan should have honored him with his own family name, and Nambi became Nambi Nedunjezhiyan. Perayil Muruvalar captures a rather unusual situation in his poem. The colophon describes the scene where Nambi had passed away. People have gathered at the palace of the ruler. Now he hadn't died in battle, and hence it was argued whether he must be given a hero's death by scarring his body with a sword. And then the people seem to have argued whether he should be buried or his remains should be burnt. And the argument seemed to have been prolonged for so long that Perayil Muruvarar renders a poem in a somewhat vexed tone. The heart-wrenching poem carries the title Iduga Suduga Yeduvum Seiga. You either bury him or burn him. Do whatever. The poem under a subdivision, that is a thurai known as Kayyaranilai, which is singing the praise of a hero after his death, begins Todiyudaya Tolmanandanan Kadigavir Puchudinan. He embraced women wearing bangles on their arms and adorned them with flowers in the protected forests. He destroyed his enemies and their families and protected his friends. He never flattered someone because they were strong. Neither did he talk highly of himself to the weak. He didn't beg from others, nor did he deny help to those who came to him. Vendudai avayathu vongu pugal thotrinan. He revealed his great fame in the court of the kings. He repelled invading armies and made his enemies retreat. He emptied pots of sweet liquor and ended the hunger of bards, making them happy. He did all that was to be done. ஆங்கு செய்பையெல்லாம் செய்தனன் ஆகலின் இடுக ஒன்றோ சுடுக ஒன்றோ படுவழி படுக இப்புகழ்வையோன் தலையே. So bury or burn the head of this man who desired great fame. Let whatever happens, happen. While the line வேந்துடை அவையத்து ஓங்கு புகழ் தோற்றினான் clearly proves that Nambi Nedunchezhiyan was not a crowned sovereign. Now we have seen how Tamils practiced different kinds of urn burials right from the Iron Age times, with their hero stone being erected upon the burial sites of war heroes. Here, the poem capturing an argument between the people as to whether the king's mortal remains should be buried or burnt seems to capture a clash between two cultures. Now, there were many generic names given for the Pandya kings such as Vazhuthi, Maran, Gauriyan, Panjavan, Seliyan and Meenavan. Amidst these names, Panjavan led to a lot of confusion and mythical stories connecting the Pandiyas with the Pandavas, where Pancha meant 5 in Sanskrit. As P.T. Srinivasa Iyengar points out in his The History of the Tamils from the earliest times to 600 AD, the Pandyas were Aryanized and made into the lunar dynasty, and then came the story of Arjuna, one of the 5 Pandavas, marrying a Pandya princess Chitra, and the son born of this union was shown as ascending the throne after the passing away of Chitrangada's father. Such mythical lineages, of course, were created in the post-Sangam era. A Purananuru poem in praise of Palsalai Mudugudumi Peruvaldi calls him Panjavar Ere, bull among the Panjavar. It could only mean that he was the leader amongst several contemporaneous rulers who presided over different provinces under the Pandya domain. With some of these Pandya rulers being poets themselves, we saw in the previous episode of a beautiful poem titled Kattral Nandre, rendered by Arya Padai Kadanda Nedunchezhiyan, as his name implied, the Nedunchezhiyan who put down an Aryan army invading from the north, and in all likelihood, he was a real historic personage whom Ilango Adigal made into a character in his epic The Silappadiharam. Another classical poem rendered by Kadalul Maayintha Ilamperu Vazhuthi. The name literally translates to the youthful Vazhuthi who was lost to the seas. Now, was he a Pandya king? Was the name derived from a hearsay account of some event that had happened in a bygone era, passed down generation after generation, getting recorded in the colophon that was attached to these poems at a much later period by the redactors? Well, we can only guess. Then again, we will look at the poem itself because of the beautiful brevity of thought that it expresses. Purananuru poem 182, titled Undalamma Ivvulagam, the world exists because. Undalamma Ivvulagam Indirar Amildam Eivadayinum, Inithu ena Tamiyar Undalum ilare, Munivilar, Tunjalum ilar, Pirar anjuvathu anji Puhalenin Uyirum Kodukkuvar, Padiyenin Ulagudan Perinum Kollalar, Ayarvilar, Anna Maatchiyar Anayarahi, Tamakkena Muyala Nonthal, Pirarkena Muyalunar Unmayane. The world exists because of men who, even if they were given the very nectar of the Indra, the sweet-tasting Amrit, will not have it by themselves but will share it with others. They are men with no hatred and who know no laziness. Afraid of what others fear, they will give up their lives for fame, but will not accept if it comes with dishonor, even if they were to gain the world. Men who had no regrets and with noble virtues, who exerted their power not for themselves but for others. Such high moral standards, the poem of course comes under the Thurai, the subdivision of Porunmozhi Kanji, that talks of soul elevating ideals rendered by a Pandya ruler 2 millennia ago. Nilakanta Sastri, in his book The Pandiyas, enlists the name of many a small ruler who ruled from Pandya provinces collated from the colophons of the Sangam poems. And if we were to just see a few of them, the poet Avur Moolankilar, who rendered a Purananuru poem on Ilavandhigai Palli Tunjiya Nanmaran, has also sung on a Pandya ruler, Pandiyan Kiran Mahan Satan. As the name itself clearly indicates, Sathan, who was the son of Kiran, a chieftain who was contemporaneous with Ilavandhigai Pallithunjiya Nanmaran. The poet Konattu Erichalur Madalan Madurai Kumaranar has rendered a Puram poem on Eerndur Kiran Thoyan Maran, the Kiran or landlord who ruled from Eerndur. Thoyan should have been his name, and Maran should have been a title bestowed on him by the ruling Pandya sovereign. The poet Seethalai Chatanar has rendered a Purananuru poem on Pandiyan Chitra Thunjiya Nanmaran, the Nanmaran who passed away at Chitra. This is the only poem written for this king. A Pandya ruler by the name Kuruvaludi has rendered two exotic poems in Ahananuru, one in Kurundogai and one in Purananuru, where the colophon gives his name as Andar Mahan Kuruvaludi. Interestingly, Kuru meaning small or short, opposite of Peru meaning great, Kuruvaludi, a subordinate ruler who must have ruled under a Peruvaludi. Here, the historian Mailai Sini Vengadasamy gives an explanation for the term Andar Mahan. The word under referring to the Ayar or Idayar clan who herded the cattle. There is also a Puram poem rendered by one Andar Nadunkallinar, the poet who sang a hero stone, a Nadukkal, and Kuruvaludi is considered his son, while a Pandiyan Nalvaludi has rendered a beautiful poem in Paripadal describing the Pudunir Vizha on the Vaigai river. A Pandiyan Maran Valudi has rendered two quaint poems in Natrinai. Another excellent poem laying the rules of fair play has been rendered by the famed poet Pisarandayar on a Pandiyan Arivudai Nambi. Now, Pisarandayar serves as an important lateral link poet, having sung the famed Chola king Kopperum Cholan of the next generation, and establishes Arivudai Nambi as a ruler contemporaneous to Kopperum Cholan. Purananuru poem 184 under the subdivision the Thurai Seviyari Uruvu, that is giving advice to the king, goes, Kainal Aruthu Kavalam Koline Maniraivu Illadum Pannatkagum Nooru Seru Ainum Tamithu Pukkunine Vai Puguvadanum Kaal Peridu Kedukkum. If you reap rice paddy and make balls and feed it to the elephant, a land the size of even the measure of a ma meaning the extent of the land, would be enough to feed the elephant for months. On the other hand, if the elephant were left into a field to feed for itself, then even fertile land to the extent of 100 fields would not be enough, as more grain would be ruined under the elephant's feet. Arivudai Vendan Neri Arindu Koline Kodiyathu Nadu Peridu Nandum. If an intelligent king understands justice and takes as taxes only what is right, the country will offer him 1,000,000 times more and the land will flourish. If he is weak and surrounded by unscrupulous advisers who have no sense of fair play, takes what he desires each day without any kindness, Yanai Pukka Pulambola Thanum Unnan Ulahamum Kedume, then this country will go to waste like the field that an elephant enters to feed itself. Now, coming back to the Pandya kings who ruled in the 9th generation, Musiri Mutriya Sediyan and Ukkara Peruvaludi, ruling between 150 and 175 Common Era. Musiri Mutriya Sediyan, as the name itself indicates, the Sediyan who wrested Musiri from the Cheras, has been sung by two Sangam poets, Nakkirar and Thayankannanar. Nakkirar, having sung the Pandyan king of the previous generation, Ilavandhigai Pallithunjiya Nanmaran, hence comes across as a very important linear link poet, having sung both the 8th and the 9th generation of Pandya rulers. Nakkirar's poem in Ahananuru talks of how Sediyan destroyed the famed port city of the Cheras, that is Musiri, and it is on the base of this poem that this Sediyan is fixed in the 9th generation by KNS, as the poem also records how he defeated the Chera king of the 9th generation, Cheraman Kokodai Marban. The poem itself is an agam setting showing a heroine yearning for her hero, and it is titled Kodidher Sediyan Musiri Mutrugai. And the Agananuru poem 57 goes, Koi Suvar Puravi Kodidher Sediyan Mudunir Munturai Musiri Mutri Kalirupada Erikkiya Kallena Nyatpin அரும்புன் உறுனரின் வருந்தினள். In this hot mountain with long arduous paths, we are alone. My lover suffers greatly, crying day and night, distressed like those who got deep wounds in the uproarious battle when Pandiyas with chariots and horses with trimmed manes laid siege to the port town of Musiri near the ocean and killed many elephants. The poet Tayam Kannanar also sings of the same victory over Musiri in an Ahananuru poem 149. The title of the poem given in the colophon reading Yavanar Kappal. The poem begins, Valiyan Nenje. The hero tells his heart, may you live long. Even if I can obtain very rare great wealth quite easily, I will not come with you on the long wasteland path deserting the heroine. I will not cause them to shed clear tears, her proud moist eyes with red lines that resemble two new blue water lilies opened by bees tied together from where பல்பொறி மஞ்ஞை வெல்கொடி உயரிய ஒடியா விழவின் நெடியோன் குன்றத்து, the large deep springs of Murugan's திருப்பரங்குன்றம், சேரலர் சுள்ளியம் பேரியாற்று வெண்ணுரை கலங்க யவனர் தந்த வினைமான் நன்கலம் பொன்னொடு வந்து கரியோடு பெயரும் வளம் கெழு முசிறி ஆர்ப்ப எழவளையி, where he surrounded with uproar the wealthy port city of Musiri on the banks of the beautiful Periyar, wherein the large fine ships of the Yavanar that have come in with loads of gold and are going back with loads of pepper have muddied the waters. The next king shown in this generation is Ukkara Peruvaludi. He earned the epithet Kana Pereyil Kadanda Ukkara Peruvaludi, having conquered the great fortress of Kanaper from a chieftain named Vengai Marban, which is recorded in a Puram poem by the poet Ayyur Moolankilar. Kanaper is considered by some scholars to be Kalayar Koil, that is 63 kilometers from Madurai in the Sivagangai district. And the Purananuru poem 21 titled Puhalsal Thondral begins, Pulavara iranda Puhalsal Thondral, நிலவரை இறந்த குண்டுகண் அகழி. Kanaper has a very deep moat, அகழி, skyscraping tall towers, balconies that look like stars in the sky, surrounded by dense forests where the rays of the sun do not fall on the ground. O noble King Valudi, today it has come into your possession, and Vengai Marban is left in desperation as he knows that he can never regain it. பாடுதுறை முற்றிய கொற்ற வேந்தே இகழும் நரிசையோடு மாய புகழோடு விளங்கி பூக்கனின் வேலே. May you get victory day after day. You are sung by many poets. Let the fame of your enemies who blame you disappear, and let your victorious spears shine with fame. Cheras shows how of all the kings in the synchronistic tables, this is the first king whose name appears in a Sanskrit garb. He opines that Ukkara Peruvaludi could very likely be the translation of the Tamil name Kaichinavaludi. Kaisinam meaning great anger, literally translated to Ukkira Peru, a name which happens to appear in the legend of the three Sangams, where a popular saying goes, Kaichinavaludi Mudal Kadungon Varai, where Kaichinavaludi is shown as the first king of the first Sangam and Kadungon is shown as the last king of the last Sangam. So Cheras opines that Kaichinavaludi should have been a real Pandya personage whose name was Sanskritized to Ukkara Peruvaludi by the redactors who compiled the poems at a much later date. Now this king has left two scintillating poems in Agananuru and one poem in Nattinai. The scholar Sadasiva Pandarathar in his book on the Pandiyas records how this king was an expert in vividly describing scenes from Kurunji and Mullai, and in his book records the mythical legend passed on of how Ukkara Peruvaludi during his rule ordered the compilation of the Agananuru, assigning one Madurai Uppuri Kudikilar Mahanar Uttira Sanmar to do the job. Commenting on this and another legendary story of how the Tirukural was first made public in the court of this king, all unfounded legends, Cheras says, and I quote, if this king had any hand in the organization of a Sangam, or in patronizing any of the collections of the Sangam works, the contemporary poets would have been the first to sing his praises for such an honor conferred on letters. Their testimony, on the other hand, is sadly lacking, and hence the Sangam hypothesis stands unsupported by contemporary evidence. An important lateral link poet in this generation is the famed lady poet Avvayar, who has sung a Purananuru poem in the court of the 9th generation Chola king Rajasuyam Vetta Perunarkilli. And in this poem, she records her joy in seeing all the three Moovendars assembled together, the other two kings being, of course, Ukkara Peruvaldi of the Pandya kingdom and the Chera king, Cheraman Mari Vanko. And though the names of several Pandya rulers come after the 9th generation in the Sangam works, like for example Pandian Arivudai Nambi, whom we have identified with the 10th generation Chola king Koparan Cholan, thanks to the poems sung by the lateral link poet Pisirandayar, Canis claims that the lineage of the early Pandyas cannot be traced with any clarity after the 9th generation. And on this point, other historians too agree with him. And so, with Pandian Kana Perayil Kadanda Ukkara Peruvaldi, we come to the end of the line of the early Pandyas, and we will continue with the line of the early Cholas in the next episode, where we will look at the contemporaneous king of Ukkara Peruvaldi, the Chola king Rajasuyam Vetta Perunarkilli. Vanakkam.